Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. This week we're going to be talking about angle grinders, and we'd like to thank Brett McGowan for liking and sharing the podcast. And we just got back book 17 from the editor. We've got some changes to make, and we'll be publishing it soon. So we'll let you know when you can download a copy.
Yippee! Did that sound excited enough?
Some of the first angle grinders were large, heavy tools developed in the late 1800s to grind, shape, and polish metal and stone for manufacturing. Smaller electric angle grinders came out in the 1950s, and some of the first angle grinders marketed to homeowners were developed by Black & Decker and Ryobi.
What is an angle grinder?
It's a two-handed power tool that uses a spinning abrasive disc to shape material, and that disc is also called a wheel.
What is an angle grinder used for?
They're generally used for cutting and grinding metal, concrete, stone, brick, or mortar, removing paint or rust, cutting or shaping tiles, sharpening tools, sanding, or polishing. So, a lot of uses.
Cool. What are the different types of angle grinders?
Corded and cordless are the two main types. There are also pneumatic angle grinders, but they're more for industrial or commercial use.
What do you mean by pneumatic?
It works with air pressure.
Have you ever used an angle grinder?
Yes, when I put in new windows at the house I'm in now, I had to grind down the brick so the windows would slide in easier. So I rented a corded angle grinder from a home center, and it did a great job, although I started at the back of the house so I could practice. And the amount of dust was amazing, so I wore an N95 mask and safety goggles because stuff was flying everywhere.
Right. What are some features to look for in an angle grinder?
Compare the grip. You're going to be holding on to the main body with one hand, so compare the shape and the size for your grip. The diameter is going to vary and affect the comfort and control of the tool. Some are going to be more ergonomic than others.
Okay.
If you have a home center near you, check out the display models and see what feels comfortable.
Right.
Adjustable side handles can give you more control depending on the project. Look at the power rating. For corded angle grinders, they're going to be rated by amps. Most are going to range from 5 to 15 amps. And in general, angle grinders with higher amps will have more power and performance. Grinders in the 7 to 11 amp range with 4.5-inch discs are powerful enough for most projects around the house, and they have less draw on the circuit if you have an older home with a 15 amp circuit.
Right.
Cordless grinders are rated by volts. The most common is 18 or 20 volts. Compare the amp hours on the batteries. In general, the higher the amp hours, the longer the run time. So a 5 amp hour battery would have a longer run time than a 4 amp hour battery, for example.
Right.
If you plan on doing large projects, a grinder that comes with 2 batteries is going to give you more run time.
Like twice the run time.
And some cordless grinders don't include the battery or the charger, so you can save some money if you have the same battery for other tools.
Okay. Batteries are unique to the manufacturer, right?
Yeah, most brands have a unique design, so they can't be used with other brands.
Right.
DeWalt, Ryobi, Milwaukee, and other manufacturers have tools with interchangeable batteries for their brand of tools, which is handy, so you don't have to have multiple chargers and batteries. So if you have a DeWalt drill, for example, it'd be more economical to buy a DeWalt angle grinder that uses the same battery.
Cool. Back to the features to look for?
Angle grinders with brushed motors are going to be less expensive, but you have to routinely replace the brushes if you use your tool a lot.
Okay.
A brush is a small square or rectangular block made out of carbon or other material that's connected to a wire, a spring, and a contact. The brushes transfer the electric from the power supply to the spinning rotor in the motor. It slowly wears down as you use the tool. Another feature is auto-off brushes. It shuts off the grinder to prevent damage to the tool as the brush gets too small. A brushless motor is usually more expensive. It uses an electronic controller, sensors, and magnets to turn the rotor. Brushless motors are going to be more powerful and they last longer than a brushed motor, and there's less maintenance. There's no brushes to change.
Okay.
RPMs range from around 6,000 to 11,000. In general, a grinder with a lower speed is better for projects with softer material. Mm-hmm. A higher speed is better for harder material, especially for cutting off material. Angle grinders with variable speed control can give you more control and better results than a fixed speed grinder. You can match the speed to the material or the project, like grinding versus polishing.
Okay.
Compare the switches. A paddle is going to be larger and easier to grip. A trigger is going to be smaller. A trigger or paddle that has to be held down is safer if you lose control of the tool. When you release it, it turns off.
Okay.
A slide switch turns on in one direction and off in the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
A switch lock is good for extended use. You can lock the switch in the on position so you don't have to hold in the switch.
Okay.
An adjustable guard allows you to move the guard so you can block the sparks and debris depending on your position. An adjustable guard that doesn't need a tool is going to be more convenient.
Mm-hmm.
A soft start angle grinder slowly increases the speed of the disc, and that's going to give you more control, and there's less stress on your hands and your wrists. Like that large grinder I use for my windows, it really jerked your hands when you turned it on.
Oh.
Fast braking is a safety feature that quickly stops the rotation of the disc to help prevent injuries. A kickback brake or a safety clutch will help prevent a kickback. If the grinder senses a kickback might happen, it stops the rotation of the disc.
What is a kickback?
If the disc gets caught on the material or pinched, it can jerk the grinder back with a lot of force, which can injure your wrists or your hands, or you could lose control of the grinder, which could cause an injury.
What other features should you compare on an angle grinder?
Overload protection helps prevent damage to the motor from overheating. Line lockout prevents the tool from starting after a power outage. There's usually a second switch to reset the tool.
Okay.
Anti-vibration handles will help reduce stress to your hands and wrists. Hand-arm vibration syndrome, called HAVS, is caused from using tools like an angle grinder over long periods of time. The vibration can cause damage to the nerves and the blood vessels in the hands and the arms.
Wow.
That's wild. Science Direct recommends looking for tools with anti-vibration technology, including less vibration-prone grinding wheels, anti-vibration handles, and they suggest wearing anti-vibration gloves to reduce vibration exposure from handheld grinding, sawing, sanding, and polishing power tools.
Okay. What are some top-rated anti-vibration glove companies?
Ergodyne, it's ERGODYNE. Impacto, it's IMPACTO. DeWalt, DE, capital WALT. Ironclad, IRONCLAD, and Mechanix, MECHANIX.
Cool. How do the discs attach to the angle grinder?
Most angle grinders have a flange washer that goes onto the spindle first, then the disc goes over the flange washer. A flange disc nut, also called a lock nut, is then threaded onto the spindle to hold the disc in place. Most nuts will have 2 or 4 indentations that a special spanner wrench with 2 pins fit into to tighten that nut down.
Okay.
The nut will have a flat side and a side with a raised area in the center. For most manuals I read, they recommend putting the raised side down for 1/4-inch thick discs or thicker. Put the flat side down for 1/8 inch or thinner discs, but check the manual for your model.
Okay.
Some models will have a quick connect nut with spring locks that can be hand tightened, or a quick locking nut with a flip-up handle, so you don't need the special wrench.
Exciting. What are the different types of discs?
The most common style of disc is a Type 27.
27?
Which yeah.
It's not going to be 27 different types, are there?
I think it's like WD-40. They finally nailed it on the 27th time.
Okay.
So a Type 27 can be used for grinding and cutting. It's also called a depressed center wheel or a raised hub wheel. The center of the disc is recessed where the flange nut sets onto it. A Type 1 disc is straight and flat. There isn't a recessed area. It's also called a cutoff wheel. and it's designed for cutting.
Okay.
A Type 1 disc requires a Type 1 guard. It gives 180-degree coverage around the back of the disc for safety. Some grinders come with a Type 27 and a Type 1 guard, so you can safely use both types of discs. You would switch out the guard to match the disc.
Okay.
With many grinders, you can purchase a Type 1 guard from the manufacturer, but a couple models I looked at, the manual said only use Type 27 discs, do not use Type 1 discs. So check the manual or the specifications when you're shopping.
Okay.
And when you're looking for a disc for your angle grinder, most grinders will have a 5/8 diameter spindle with 11 threads per inch. Some grinders will have a 7/8 diameter spindle. You want to match the hole size on your disc to your spindle size.
All right. In doing this research, I saw it mentioned it was either spindle or arbor.
Right.
So what is an arbor?
The spindle is also called an arbor. It's the shaft that you connect your disc to.
Okay.
And many 5/8 spindle grinders come with a flange that has a raised area, so it can take a disc with a 5/8 or 7/8 inch hole. But check your manual. You want to make sure it fits tight. You don't want that disc to wobble for safety.
Okay.
Check the RPMs on the disc. You want it to match or exceed the RPMs on your grinder. Also match the disc diameter to your grinder size and the guard size. Match the abrasive material on the disc to the material you're cutting or grinding. The disc will be marked for the type of material that it's formulated for, like metal or concrete, and the use, like grinding or cutting. Besides cutting and grinding wheels, you can get flap discs. They have overlapping sanding material. The material is going to conform to the shape of the surface you're working on, and flap discs are good for removing rust or paint, shaping, and smoothing surfaces.
Okay.
Wire brushes and wire cups have a threaded hole, so it can be screwed directly onto a 5/8 by 11 spindle, and they're good for removing paint and rust. And you can get sanding discs that use a rubber backing pad to hold it in place. It's also good for removing rust and paint.
All right. How do you use an angle grinder?
Always have the grinder unplugged or remove the battery before you attach or replace a disc. There's going to be a shaft lock button that you depress, and that's going to hold the spindle in place while you tighten down the lock nut onto the disc. A few of the manuals I read recommend holding the grinder at a 5 to 15 degree angle and use the front edge of the disc for grinding and sanding. A couple manuals also said when you're breaking in a new disc, pull the grinder backwards on your work, and once the edge of the disc has been rounded off, then move your grinder forward and backward.
Okay.
You want to adjust the guard to block any sparks and debris from hitting you. For grinding or sanding, you want to hold the grinder with two hands, turn it on and allow the disc to reach full speed, then apply light pressure on the surface of your work. Use a forward and backward motion or a circular motion and keep the grinder moving to control how evenly the material is being removed. For cutting off material, hold the grinder firmly with two hands and slowly push the grinder into the material. You want to keep a 90-degree angle to your work and don't twist the grinder. You can cause the disc to break apart or cause a kickback.
Okay.
You also want to cut all the way through the material. If you stop before it's cut off, it can get stuck. And then when you're done with the grinder, unplug or remove the battery for safety.
All right. What are some safety tips for using an angle grinder?
The company Metabo says always use the tool as designed. Don't alter the tool. It can increase the likelihood of an injury. Never remove the guard. Match the grinding wheel size to the size of the grinder. Know the rotation of the wheel before making contact with a surface. Use the correct wheel for the material. Match the RPM rating on the wheel to the RPM rating on the grinder. Use hearing protection, safety goggles, safety glasses or a face shield, gloves, a long sleeve shirt, and a dust mask. And use an N95 mask if you're grinding concrete or masonry. Working close to flammable items is dangerous. There can be a lot of sparks, and sparks can be 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, which can ignite sawdust, cardboard, and other flammable items.
Right.
And I read a couple manuals that said, do not use this tool for polishing, only for grinding, cutting, and removing material. So check the manual and the specific safety tips for your model.
Okay.
If you're using an extension cord, use a grounded extension cord that matches or exceeds the amp rating of your grinder. If you use an undersized extension cord, you can damage the motor over time, shortening its life, and you'll overheat the cord. Grinders with a 2-prong power cord are double insulated and they don't require a ground. Always use the correct guard and position to block sparks and debris. Some manuals allow the guard to be removed for a wire cut brush or sanding disc, but some manuals recommend a Type 27 guard for a wire cut brush, so check your manual.
Right.
Always secure your work so it doesn't move. Don't overreach when you're using a grinder. You want to remove jewelry, earphones, or earbuds, or anything that could get caught in the disc. Wear heavy-duty, thick gloves. Always unplug or remove the battery when you're done grinding, especially if you have kids. When you're using a new disc, make sure it seats firmly with no wobble and run the grinder for 20 to 30 seconds before you use it. And that way you make sure you don't have a defective disc. Have a fire extinguisher handy. An ABC-rated extinguisher is good for the garage or a workshop. A is for wood, paper, clothes, or ordinary combustibles. B is for flammable liquids, and C is for electrical equipment.
Right. What type of maintenance is needed for an angle grinder?
You should clean dust and debris out of the vents after every use. Some models come with a vent filter. And make sure you disconnect the power cord or remove the battery before you clean your tool. Clean the handles with a damp cloth dipped in soapy water. Never use flammable cleaners. If your model has brushes, check them routinely and check your model for the brush length for when they should be replaced. Check for loose parts and loose screws before every use. Check the spindle, lock nut, and guard for cracks or wear. And check your power cord for wear, like cracks or cuts.
Okay. What are some top-rated angle grinder companies?
Metabo, it's Metabo. Makita, Makita. DeWalt, Porter Cable, Black & Decker, Ryobi, Ryobi, Milwaukee, and Craftsman. And check out the reviews for individual models.
Right. Do you have anything else to add?
The high speed of an angle grinder disc can be dangerous, so make sure you're always wearing safety equipment and be aware of flammable items around your workspace.
Right.
And another thing you should compare is the warranty. I saw 1 to 3 years on most models. Keep your receipt, send in the warranty card, or register online in case you have any problems with the grinder, and you're also going to be notified if there's a recall or safety problems.
Cool. Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
Check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our ebooks, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, books 1 through 16 on Amazon, and soon book 17 on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow Cindy on Twitter @FixitCohost, and you can follow us on Instagram, Fixit Home Improvement.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.